Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the March 24th Council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Medic.
Here.
Mr. Minor. Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Tobin.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the approval of minutes from the March 10th council meeting. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta
Second.
and second by Mr. Balestria. Are there any changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention, you were absent that evening. Okay, these minutes have been approved as written. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Okay. We will now move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure Mr. Mano, Councilman Mano, will report on our Bunny Breakfast, which is coming up April 12th. Is that in your report this evening? Probably. No? Just keep that in your calendar.
It's not in there. Go
April
ahead.
12th at 9 a.m. for ages 3 through 9. Please call Parks and Rec to sign up for that, 442-2627. Again, I just want to stress to our residents, our older residents, the importance of going to the Community Partnership on Aging website. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn too. There's so many programs there for all of our older residents. And I just, I keep harping on that, but I want to make sure that all of our residents know what a great resource CPA is. And then just a reminder that our first Shred and Recycle Day is Saturday, May 10th. From 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the city parking lot off Chelmsford. City park lot, I should say, off Chelmsford. And the second day, we added another date this year. That will be September 20th, Saturday, but we'll update that as we get closer. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the mayor? Okay, moving to Director of Law, Mr. Schmidlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I have to suggest tonight is when we get down to the 1341, talking about rental properties, it would be my suggestion that we place it on second reading. As Mrs. Sabetta pointed out today, the state of Ohio is still in flux over what's going on with Senate Bill 104. So my suggestion would be to place that on second reading, and in all likelihood, it's going to be tabled at the next meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schmidlin? Director of Finance, Mrs. Scully.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment is that we will be having a Finance Committee meeting for Q1 on Tuesday, April 8th at 5 p.m. I will have the financials out to you by the previous Friday, April 4th.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Scully? If there's any department directors this evening that would like to be heard, this is your chance to come up at this time. Mr. Cheney.
Good evening, thank you. Spring is here, and I know you're getting calls and questions from residents about last year's road program. We have a list of punch list items that have to be resolved by the contractor per street. It's a very detailed list. There's some aprons that have already pitted that are going to come out. There are trees that are going to be removed and replaced. And obviously some of the cracks and things like that will be taken care of. It's getting to be about that time where we can come out and start doing that. And there's a lot of restoration to do. We're waiting on, obviously, the topsoil was frozen, so now that we can get maybe some dry, good topsoil, they'll start that. I would expect in the next week or two, I'll be able to get them out there. I have sent letters and emails to the contractor, and he's aware of it. And he did say when the weather gets a little better, we'll be out there. So Chuck and Tony have also driven around and given me a list of things which I've added to the contractor's list. So we do have money left in the contract, and we're not going to pay them until these items are resolved. So, second is the Marnell project. We did work out some of the issues with the gas company, and we have submitted to Cleveland Water Department for review. We anticipate submitting the PTI, which is permit to install, to the EPA this week. We had to make our goal was last Friday, but we had to make a few changes because of what we were doing with the gas company. So now that we've got that resolved, we can submit for a PTI, and we seem to be on time, completing it, which was our goal, to complete it in April sometime, so we'll be out for bids hopefully in May. So, end of report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Cheney? Okay, thank you. Mr. Rowan? Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. I just wanted to touch on some highlights from economic development in the first quarter. We've started our business retention and visitation meetings in earnest at this point. We've conducted several of those meetings and have several coming up with some of our larger companies in the corporate park. A lot of those have been done in tandem with Team NEO and Jobs Ohio from the state, from Columbus have come up, and we've had those meetings together, which is really great. I think it's good because we get a wider perspective on things at the regional and state level. So those are going well. We've had a lot of really positive comments. I think one reoccurring theme that we've heard on several of those meetings is just some of the challenges that businesses are facing with some uncertainties just because of changes at the federal level and how that's disrupted supply chains and sourcing workforce and those type of things. So, certainly in 2025, we'll see how some of those things play out. But another thing we heard too was the desire to really increase communication between the city and businesses. So taking that, to heart, we've, in talking with the mayor, started some tasks and some different protocols to really improve that communication between the city and businesses. So going forward, with some of our key properties and key businesses in the corporate park, we're going to be setting up ongoing quarterly meetings with some of the leadership there, just as a touch point to make sure that we're communicating anything that we need to communicate to those businesses from the city, and then also hearing anything they may have for us as well. We started working with the building department to put together a list of all of the facility contacts at all of the buildings and office complexes in the corporate park as well, with the idea that then when there's a water main break or a sewer issue, that service department can pull up that list and reach out proactively to those businesses, because the last thing we want is any disruptions to operations down there. And then we'll also be creating in the second quarter of this year an electronic e-news that we're planning to write and send out to all of the businesses, as well as a way to communicate with them directly. And then we've also implemented some changes to the economic development web pages on the website. So if you go there and look today, you'll see that there's some new information, some updated items. And one thing to take note of if you do choose to go and look at it is we partnered with Jobs Ohio, and they provide a widget you can put on your website that links to the state's list of available sites. So now we have a searchable, self-populated way to search for available space in the city. It's very professional, looks very nice. I have the ability to add to that. It's populated through the state system, so it only picks up some of the larger listings because that's what the state focuses on. So I'm able to go in there and add some of the smaller ones over time. So it's a nice feature. And I also encourage you to look around on the state system. It's populated with a lot of good analytical data around workforce, consumer habits, demographics, labor force, number of businesses by sector, and you can scale that to any size that you want. You can cut it by city, you can do geographic drive times, you can do 10-mile radius by property. So it's really a functional tool that's available for free through the state of Ohio. So those are some of the ways that we're going to start to increase that communication between the city and businesses. Some of our other projects we have, the wayfinding and signage project is moving forward. We have a meeting next week, a virtual meeting with our steering committee to go through some of that work. And then we're on task to be completely done with that project in June, and we'll be able to go out to bid once we decide on how we want to move forward at that time. The Mayfield Heights Magazine, we'll have our first proof of that next week. So we'll be able to start to review that, and that project's still on task and on schedule to be mailed out in early May to the residents and businesses. And just a couple of updates on the real estate front. The Landerbrook Corporate Center, the 3 buildings, that property has been listed for sale now. So the property owners are certainly still facing some challenges with that property. But they have had some good tours because some of those companies have reached out to me to talk about incentives and things. So they are getting some positive movement. The Progressive building on Parkland is under contract, so that's a positive sign. So hopefully there'll be some good news and movement with that property over the next few months. And, generally, I think the office market's certainly challenged, but we've seen some leasing activity. We've had some good inquiries and some reaching out from the commercial real estate community and some companies interested in moving into Mayfield Heights. So overall, it's trending in a positive direction.
Great.
So that concludes my remarks this evening.
Exciting news for the city. Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Great news.
Talbin?
Is there any plans also to help connect the businesses with each other, not just us with the businesses, but help them learn who else is in the business park so that they can, leverage their relationships?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly opportunities to get involved at the local level in the Chamber of Commerce that we share with the businesses. A lot of the larger companies are more active at Greater Cleveland Partnership level, at that level of the chamber. But certainly some of the smaller businesses, especially the retail along Mayfield Road, we have encouraged them where we feel that there is some value to get involved with the chamber as a way to network.
And what about any career fairs? Have you thought about career fairs to help our employers find workers?
No, I mean, haven't thought about that at our level. There's the availability to tap into those through COSI and Greater Cleveland Partnership. And sometimes the schools themselves will put those on. I'm honestly not that familiar with the school district here to know if that's something that's going on, but it's something we could certainly ask about.
I just went to South Euclid, had the career fair. It was very well attended, and the people there thought it was very worthwhile for them to be there. So I thought I went, took somebody, and they already have an interview. So
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Anything further from council? All right, thank you so much
Thank you.
for your report.
Thank you. A lot of activity tonight. I just wanted to touch on two topics tonight. Before you tonight, I presented our 2024 annual report. It's just a small snapshot of our call volume, some of our stats, some operational items, and some of the services that we offer to the community that we protect. So I hope you have a chance to look through that. If you have any questions about anything in there, feel free to reach out to me. That report is it's also currently on the fire department's webpage, which is the city's webpage. But if you go to the fire department tab, the annual report and previous year's reports are all listed there, so the public will see the same document that you guys have before you. And then my second item is, we're starting to get into some warmer weather. That also does increase some of our call volume, service for calls for outdoor fires. I've received several calls about what's allowed and what's not allowed. Just want to real touch on a couple items with that. So there basically are three different types of outdoor fires. You have recreational fires, which are your campfires where you're cooking hot dogs, enjoying, the family and, doing those types of things. And there's also an open burning, which is a larger fire, which are not allowed here. And then there's obviously bonfires, which you have to, those are more for ceremonial purposes. You have to have a permit. And those are not done in residential areas. Those are more commercial. So those are the three types of fires. Recreational fires are permitted and legal in Ohio and here in Mayfield Heights, but there's got to be several things that have to come into play to consider with that. Number one, you have to have seasoned firewood. You can't be burning your sticks and your branches and your leaves and your yard debris. It has to be seasoned firewood. Seasoned firewood doesn't make as much smoke, it's not as much of a nuisance to your neighbors. So make sure we have seasoned firewood, has to be 25 feet from property. You have to have a water source or extinguisher present, and it has to be attended at all times. It also has to be a size requirement. It can't be no more than 3 feet wide and flames no more than 2 feet tall. So all of these things have to come into play in order to be allowed in the city. So when we go to somebody's house that maybe a neighbor called, if they are compliant with all of those things, there's nothing we don't have them put it out. They are allowed. But if it's an unsafe thing where maybe it's super windy out or they're using wet wood and it's creating smoke, then we ask them to put it out. And most of the time people are very cooperative with that. But if you're following all those guidelines, it is a safe environment. Sometimes neighbors just don't know what's legal and what isn't. So happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to provide you guys an update as what's legal and what isn't legal in Ohio.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions for Chief Elliott?
I just have one.
Mr. Belstrade?
Just kind of off topic, Chief, but can you give us the timeline on the ladder truck? Are we still on time for that?
I haven't spoke to the manufacturer in sometime since, the end of last year, but I know it's going to be like hopefully the first quarter of 27. Oh, we do. Oh. But we still got some time.
That was the original date?
Yeah.
Anything further? All right. Thank you. As usual, it's an awesome annual report that you put together. Okay. Is there anybody else here this evening? Okay. We will now move to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, beginning with the Building Committee, Mr. Medic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Building Committee did not meet, so I do not have a report.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Minor. He's absent this evening, and as Ms. Scully said, there will be a finance meeting April 8th at 5 p.m. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Works did not meet officially, but I did meet with Ms. Kleins. We will be compiling info for the residents, as I previously discussed, prior to scheduling a town hall meeting. The tentative time frame I'm looking at is sometime in April. That's the goal with the Marnell residents. I also had a couple resident concerns with work being done on a couple of our streets, specifically Annandale and Washington. I referred those concerns to Mr. Struney, and he has taken care of those. So it's good to work with an engineering firm that is on the ball and takes care of the residents' concerns. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Balestrea. Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Our 2025 Summer Day Camp registration opened on Sunday, March 9th during the pancake breakfast and had sold out in less than 10 days. The camp is taking a wait list to use if a camper needs to drop out. Non-residents can be added to the wait list beginning Monday, April 7th. Our 2025 Teen Adventure Camp is still accepting registrations for school district residents. Non-district residents will open on Monday, April 7th. 2025 swim lessons for residents is open and has open spaces currently. Non-residents can sign up beginning on Monday, April the 7th. The Bunny Breakfast is on April the 12th, and we have a Park and Rec meeting tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., and everything on the Bunny Breakfast will be finalized at that point, and I'll report on that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Any questions? All right. Safety and Transportation, Ms. Talbin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to announce that on April 9th from 6 to 7, there will be a neighborhood watch here in council chambers. So I encourage all residents to come. You learned a lot of information, so hope to see you there. The committee did not meet, so I don't have a report.
Thank you. All right, Board of Zoning, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning did not meet due to no applicants. I have no report.
Thank you. And finally, Planning Commission, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Planning Commission did meet last Monday, March the 17th. Council was copied on the minutes, and as a result of that meeting, we have one motion on the agenda this evening for preliminary site plan for the CVS property redevelopment on Mayfield Road. And I'll entertain any questions at that time. That's my report.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the public portion of this meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form at the public entrance, and during the public portion, I will call each person wishing to speak to the microphone. Please state your name and address and record, and please speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:23, and I will open up the public portion. Mr. Aaron Longberry.
Kept the microphone simple. Keeps it easy for my first time up here. So I appreciate your time, especially Madam President. I believe we communicated via Facebook, prepping up for this to come to my first one. So if you've been on Facebook or some of our social media, there's been a lot of backlash about the recent.
You just need to
Sorry.
state your name and address.
My apologies.
That's
Aaron
okay.
Longberry, 1515 Temple Avenue, Mayfield Heights, Ohio, 44124.
Thank you.
A lot of the communications on there have been around the ordinance that was passed about trash cans being out and being a misdemeanor charge now. And understand that it's probably kind of a nothing kind of misdemeanor, but there's a lot of communication on there about the beautification of Mayfield and taking pride. And I think our community does a great job of taking pride in the appearance of our communities. But I believe that that kind of an ordinance was kind of a waste of our city council's time, of things that we could be spending time addressing, stuff like the conditions of the road, the sidewalks. I know on Temple itself, if you were needing of assistance, wheelchair, some sort of help with walking, that sidewalk on Temple is a nightmare. It has multiple ruts, tree roots have up the sidewalk, and those seem like more important things to address rather than whether the garbage cans are brought in a timely manner. Also, the traffic, how close people park to stop signs. There's a lot of small, short roads, and people are trying to park where they can, but it becomes a safety concern when they're parked. I think the law is within 100 feet of the stop signs or the intersections, which create a lot of congestion and unique situations when some of our local businesses are driving around with their trucks and trailers trying to get their equipment around. It becomes dangerous with what's going on there. And the other item I had on my item was for community recreation as we come into the warm season and then looking towards our winter of next year is what does that look like for our kids? I've got 4 myself, and they don't want to be cooped up in the house. They also don't want to be limited to just the Wildcat Fitness Center. We have this gorgeous fitness or community center now that seems like it's sitting empty or it's not addressing the needs of the entire community. We are excited about the aquatic center. We love that. But there just seems to be limits to what they can do within our own community, and we have to explore out to our neighboring communities to find some of the basic entertainment needs that they have. Stuff like basketball courts. When you go to the Wildcat Fitness Center during Oprah Court hours, all 3 of them are busy nonstop. And to ignore that as an outdoor court that we could use some of our space for, I feel is an oversight on our committee. We're also on Facebook, there's a lot of concerns about what's happening at some of our local businesses late Fridays or Saturday nights. And it seems like our kids, my apologies, don't have anywhere to take some of that anger and not anger and frustration, but some of that energy that they have coming, out to the evening. And what are we providing for them to do? If we could have activities during those high-risk hours where we think some of our kids are going to be out and potentially causing problems, if we could redirect some of that into community events in our community centers, I think that would be fantastic. Hopefully I did not go over my time. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you come up afterwards, I have some answers for you to your questions. Okay. Mr. Scott Halloran.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
My name is Scott Halloran. I live at 13599 County Line Road in Sugar Falls, Ohio. I was last in front of a Mayfield Heights Committee of the Whole meeting on March 11th, 2024. And in April of 2024, Mayfield Heights passed a prohibition on licensed marijuana dispensaries. My hope was, and still is, that I can encourage council to reconsider its position on this issue and at a minimum, allow us to participate in another committee of the whole. So what is different now, you may ask? Well, a few things. Due to the state requirements to be 500 feet or more from a church, park, school, playground, or library, there are very few places that are viable for a dispensary in Mayfield Heights. I'm pleased to tell you that I have secured an ideal location in the city with a very supportive landlord. The target location meets the state of Ohio's 500-foot rule and is within a shouting distance of the police department. There are a handful of stores in Mayfield Heights that are currently openly selling marijuana products labeled as hemp, Farm Bill compliant, or THCA flower. To be clear, this is all illegal in the state of Ohio, regardless of the age of the purchaser or the consumer. 300 feet from where I'm standing right now, there's a store that is selling illegal THCA vapes, flower, and joints that are considered controlled substances in this state. This is open drug trafficking. It has nothing to do with age. Yet, even with these illegal sales, the sky has not fallen in Mayfield Heights. The good news is that the state legislature is working to eliminate these illegal products as well as tightly regulate the intoxicating hemp products such as Delta 8. Voter data shows that 66% of the voters of Mayfield Heights voted for Issue 2. Every single precinct was above the state average of 57%, and some precincts were as high as 81%. With 58% of the state voting for it, 66% is a supermajority, a mandate. The voters in Mayfield Heights want this. When the dust finally settles in Columbus this summer, I believe that the tax revenue for the host city is going to be meaningful. It could and should mean hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of found money for the city. That said, you probably never ask how much money the city gets from Golden Gate Beverage or the Cork and Bottle. What you care about is them running a quality business and following the law. Well, we run a quality business, and the laws we follow are much stricter. I read the police blotters from nearly every city in Northeast Ohio that are full of DUIs. I see people pulling out of bars at midnight and 1 a.m. I see alcohol-infused Sunny D being sold right next to the kids' drinks. I see storefronts with neon marijuana leaves and other questionable advertising. I see gas stations that sell illegal pre-rolled marijuana joints and kid-targeting candy-flavored nicotine vapes. So I have to ask, is the idea of a locally owned, heavily regulated, state-licensed dispensary in a city that voted for it by 66% a crazy idea? I don't think so. Again, Mayfield Heights is more than just a target for me. This is as much my neighborhood as anywhere I've ever lived. I'm not a drug dealer or a profiteer. The industry is here to stay in Ohio, and we are here to give the citizens clean, tested, regulated product that they want and that they're going to get somewhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have a few handouts that I can leave behind, if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. And Caitlin Frederick.
Hi, good evening. My name is Caitlin Frederick, and I live at 102 Gaslight Lane in Mayfield Heights. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Illinois State University. I've been working in the marijuana industry since 2017 and have been specifically working in the Ohio marijuana industry since 2019. I initially started at one of the first state licensed testing labs, and in 2022, I started at Buckeye Relief running the internal quality control testing lab. I am the lab manager who ensures that all of our products sold in Ohio licensed dispensaries are safe for consumers. Every single product sold through a licensed dispensary is tested for potency, as well as safety assays like pesticides, heavy metals, residual solvents, mycotoxins, yeast, mold, etc. Virtually none of the products, vapes, candies, pre-rolled joints, that are currently being sold at vape shops, head shops, and gas stations in Mayfield Heights are tested by any labs for these safety assays, along with accurate potency testing. I voted for issue 2, as did 2/3 of my fellow Mayfield Heights residents. As an industry expert, as well as someone who cares about my hometown, I have zero concerns that a dispensary will have a negative impact on our community and wholeheartedly believe that a licensed dispensary where residents can purchase safe and reliable products will actually benefit the community. I'm here tonight to ask council to allow a responsible state licensed dispensary to locate in Mayfield Heights. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to be heard? Okay. It is 7:34, and I will close the public portion. Resolution number 2025-12, Mr. Schmidlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2025-12, a resolution confirming the intention of the City of Mayfield Heights to sell property that is unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for city purposes via internet auctions and authorizing the use of certain representative websites to conduct the internet auctions and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano and second by Mr. Medic. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Ballestrea.
Yes.
Mr. Medic.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Ms. Tolbin.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Ballestrea
Second.
and second by Mr. Medic. I'm going to refer to Mr. Schmidlin on this one. This was an ordinance that we passed last meeting, and this just needs to,
So we did it a little backwards, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We made a motion to sell the vehicles via internet auction. The legislation in a perfect world would have been passed first. The Ohio Revised Code requires us to do an annual piece of legislation authorizing the city to do it. In retrospect, it should have been passed, this legislation should have been passed in January, but I think the timing's okay because the vehicles haven't been sold yet. Dana and I are going to remember to pass this January of every year going forward.
Are there any questions for Mr. Schmidlin? Ms. Talbot?
Yes, I just have one, it's a process question. It says that after 14 days, it says any property disposed of through the internet auction will be available for bid by the public for a period of 14 days. So process question, what happens after 14 days if it's not sold on auction? Can it be moved and sold another place, or I want to understand what happens.
So that the language, the 14-day language comes from 721.15D that requires it to be advertised for that period of time. To be frank with you, I don't know what happens if it doesn't get sold. You probably have to try to resell it, or eventually there'll be a number for somebody to give away.
Well, I guess the question I really have, and maybe were you getting ready to answer this?
I'm not sure what your question was. I can't read your mind. But no, I was just going to say if it doesn't sell, then we look to other outlets to sell if it's not going to sell an online auction. But we've been very successful at that. So I think.
So we don't have to keep it on a government public auction website. We can, if it doesn't sell, we could move it to another vehicle by which to sell.
But there still are requirements to post that.
Yes,
So the
of
public
course.
knows.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I honestly don't know. I've never been in a situation where a vehicle or a piece of property didn't sell.
Okay, in 14 days.
Yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess.
Okay, just curious.
Thank you. Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes, this is just a question I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the resolution and coming down to the fifth whereas, that paragraph, when an item of property to be disposed of via internet auction is estimated to exceed $1,000 in value. Can you ask me why it's repeated again as number 5?
I see where it says in 5. Where is it repeated?
Whereas it's
Got the first
written,
page, Diane.
and then section 5.
So we say it in the whereas, and then we say it in section 5. It's probably overkill, Susan.
Okay. Just wondered if,
That's how we always write legislation.
I
If I
blame
could-
I blame the lawyers. Lawyers talk like that.
They get
There's
paid
no
by the
oil.
word, didn't you know that? No, but this is, if I could, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. This is the format that we've always used. It states, you know, in the whereas, like your intentions, and then in the sections is, now therefore be it resolved, these are the actions we're going to take. So
Okay.
that's how they've always been formatted.
okay, apparently I never noticed before. Okay.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Medic?
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin?
Yes,
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This has now been approved. One second. Moving to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2025-12. Mr. Schmidlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2025-12, an ordinance amending Chapter 1341 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Rental Properties and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
This is suggested by Mr. Schmidlin that we keep this on second reading this evening. We will now move to ordinance number 2025-13. Mr. Schmidlin.
2025-13, an ordinance providing for the organization of certain administrative departments and fixing the salaries and other benefits of certain officers, employees therein, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta and second by Mr. Medic. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Ms. Tobin. Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Medic.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano
Second.
and second by Mr. Balestria. This ordinance is simply adding the position of the Assistant Law Director and adding the salary change for that position. Mrs. Scully, is there anything further you'd like to add to that?
The only other item that we added besides that is in section 21, allowing the purchase of shirts for council as a uniform. But if you look at the Exhibit A, we separated it out where if there is just only the law director, and then if the mayor obtains the assistant law director, it shows the split of the 80-20 for the same salary.
Okay, perfect. Any further questions from council? Right. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Ms. Tobin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Medic.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance number 2025-13 has been approved. This evening, we have one motion, beginning with motion A.
Thank you. Motion A, a motion to approve the preliminary site plan for a new 5,500 square foot building for the CVS property redevelopment located at 5901 Mayfield Road.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria. Second
Second.
by Ms. Talbot. All members of council should have received the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Balestria, is there anything you would like to add to this?
I do have the plans. Ben, I didn't know if you had the plans and you wanted to. I don't know, did council all get the plans?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what the site looked like.
You can show
Originally,
it
there
if you'd
was-
like. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President. For the record, Ben Chinaki on behalf of the applicants, the Landis Group, 1301 East 9th Street, Cleveland, Ohio, 44114. I believe you have the concept renderings on the screens in front of you. If you'll indulge me. Oh, we're going to go on the big screen. Very nice. While we're doing that, if I can give you guys a brief overview. You might recall it was about a year ago in April of 2024, the last time you had the pleasure of seeing me and the team here on behalf of this project. 2 years ago, we got notice as the property owner at 5901 Mayfield Road that CVS intended to vacate the main building on the site. And so as a prudent property owner and developer, we started researching how we could go about using our land, and we started going through the planning process to address that. Part of that process was working with the council, the neighboring property owners, and our team of architects and engineers to ensure that we had a plan that was suitable and something that you would all find palatable. Went through several revisions and adjustments and things of that nature, and it took us a good chunk of time to get to where you needed to go. And we received all the final approvals in April of 2024. Since that time, we've worked in earnest to get construction plans and start construction on the project as it was previously approved. Unfortunately, the city and the Landis Group, the property owners, were named as defendants in a lawsuit by the neighbor to the south, Mayfield Ridge. The consequence of that is we ended up having to reassess both the project and redevelop the plan in a way that would be more advantageous both to us and to address some of the concerns that the city had as well. So what we did was we had to mitigate our damages and think of a way to address how better to improve this site so it was more consistent with your commercial corridor design manual. One of the main things we did is, and you'll recall, there were actually two approvals we had. We received an approval for the CVS building and a separate approval for what was going to be a 1,500 square foot Popeyes quick service restaurant with a drive-through. We've made no changes to the CVS portion of the project. We did have some site plans that indicated that there were 3 or 4 tenants on the property. That's an error that we're going to clean up. You approved 3. Our rendering showed 3. It just one of our design plans showed 4. Just an oversight from the engineering team. We've been doing this so long that there's a lot of people who had to touch this at one point or another. So we have the new portion that we're asking you to consider and approve is a 5,000 square foot building close to Mayfield Road, and the details are going to be explained by our architect, Mr. Tommy Chesness. Before I turn it over to Mr. Chesness, is there any questions that you'd ask for me before we get into the details?
I do.
Mr. Balistreo.
Ben, one more question. I think I didn't ask you at the planning. I mean, when it was the Popeye proposal, it was a smaller footprint.
Yes, sir.
This is a larger footprint, and this is okay with the neighbor because there was visibility issues originally. Now it seems like there's no visibility issues with this building?
We have not addressed this with the neighbor, sir. We're by right permitted to build it, and so we're going to, assuming you approve it. And, yeah, Mr. Chassis?
Hi, my name is Tommy Chesness. I am the architect with the firm Onyx Creative. The address is 25001 Emery Road, Suite 400, Cleveland, Ohio 44128. So I'll just quickly walk you through the building design. We're discussing the building here on the right-hand side of the screen. It is now a larger building. It's going to be a retail building. Speculative right now, there's no tenants. So we are showing one tenant currently with tenant signs shown for one, but it could be demised into multiple tenants as leasing requires. It is an all brick building with cast stone around the windows. And we did modify the color palette of the CVS building to match this new building. So now it's a more cohesive development. They both speak the same language. We also designed it to feel like one retail campus with crosswalks and connection through the site so that it reads as one retail experience. This is a view looking from the parking lot up toward Mayfield Road. This would be the entry side of the building, so the front is the back, but the back, which faces Mayfield, was designed to still be attractive and have lots of glazing on it. Another view from the parking lot. This is a view from under the patio at the CVS building looking across the drive aisle. And then this is a view from this new retail building looking back at the CVS building. A view from Mayfield Road. And then just another view looking at the CVS building.
Looks nice.
But yeah, in general, we like the way the design is going. The site plan got simpler. We're happy with it and hope you guys are too.
Okay. Does any member of council have questions?
I do.
Ms. Talbot. Ms. Talbot.
I know that you had said that you had some issues and you worked that out. You made changes, I should say. But just now you just said, but you haven't shared the changes with your neighbor. Is that true?
Correct. When I said work that, I meant internally the financial consequences of being named in the lawsuit and being unable to build the unit. A consequence of that is, one, the CVS building remains dark, and two, the financial viability of continuing to proceed with the Popeyes is difficult. So from a property owner's perspective, the issues we were working out was financially how to make it work for our property.
And are you planning to share what you're doing with your neighbor?
Well, it's been properly noticed as a public record. We have an ongoing litigation that the city's involved in as well.
Okay.
Are there any further, Mr. Bellistrea?
Sorry, the law director raised the question of the landscape easement we spoke of. Was that the driveway that you're speaking of, or the parking lot in the back? Or where's the landscape easement that you referred to?
I'm not sure.
Did you refer to a landscape easement?
No, sir. There's
Okay.
there's an easement that governs and requires our property. It's a shared parking easement, so we have
Parking, right.
shared access
the
between the
back
two
lot.
properties. And so those back two stall or corridors, so to speak, those are the subject of an easement that the parties share. And then we reciprocally have
Drive.
access, and we share parking behind the Mayfield Ridge site as well. So both sides have reciprocal parking obligations, but our piece, though, that's going to be the newly paved portion, we need to preserve those spots.
Okay.
But for the purposes of landscape calculation, every parcel is supposed to be calculated individually, as opposed to as an aggregate when across two ownership groups.
Okay.
I remember last time you had said that you would take care of all the parking, the concrete and everything.
Our
brand
intention
new,
is to
all the way up
repave, yes.
Okay.
On our property, we're going to make it beautifully paved. So our ask tonight from council is to give us preliminary approval so that we can proceed in earnest with the hard construction drawings and design plans, iron out any issues that the city's review process identifies, and so that the team of architects, engineers, and all the folks involved can move towards getting everything sorted out so we can come back to final approval at the appropriate time.
Madam Chair. if I could.
Mayor?
Yeah, so if you take a look at the Planning Commission minutes, it's noted in there that, hey, this is just a preliminary. Architectural Board of Review needs to look this over, so there's a lot of steps. But I think, this is just the first step. And I think this new building addresses the issues, most of council's issues with drive-through and garbage and things like that. So, but again, this is just preliminary. It's got a long way to go, so.
Okay, Mr. Bellistrea?
Just one more. The new building, Ben, and I didn't ask you this as well. I mean, could a possible, you've got that slated for the tenant, I would assume for retail, but could a restaurant possibly be a possibility? I'm just thinking of parking now with the change in the size of the building. Would you have enough if there was a table seat?
I don't know. I apologize, I don't. My understanding is that the intention is likely to be one user where we're not going to be having a restaurant there. But I suppose it's possible, but I'm not sure 5,000 square foot for a restaurant, that might be a bit much. I think the intent is to have one main user, though, consistent with your zoning code.
Yeah, I think you made that point at the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Mr.
question.
Mr. Medic.
It's more for Mr. Balestra and the mayor. Part of this proposal shows the existing monument sign that is not on their property falls essentially curb line and part of the drive. And this is not your property. It's over the line. And I was wondering, is there something we could do on our end? It doesn't have to deal with anything they are dealing with, but
I brought that up at the planning.
I
meeting.
saw that in
Yeah.
the minutes as well. So I just
We we're going to need to look at that, because right now it's unsafe, so, yeah.
agreed. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice plan.
Mr. Mano?
It's a nice plan. I like this better than the other.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Medic?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Ms. Tolbin?
Yes?
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Motion A has been approved. This time, is there any new business or comments from council? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, and
Second.
second by Mr. Medic. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.